All right, Susie. So, what was going on for you before you decided to do the 30-day transformation and join the October group?
So over the last couple of years, probably partly during the pandemic, but a lot of life stuff going on. My weight really fluctuated, and I was at home a lot. I lost the routine of going into the studio that I'd been going into to work out, and just like those normal sort of making sense of things. And then the stresses of kids home during the pandemic and working from home and just never having that sort of break and figuring out my schedule. It really went up and down for so long. And so I had really put weight back on, which I've always struggled, and my adult life has been a struggle for me back and forth around those habits. And so I had also, but in addition to the weight gain, I had lost so much energy and so much just ability to like feel pain free. I have arthritis. I have inflammation. I'm definitely impacted by inflammation. I had no idea how much until I did the cleanse. So I was really like, I was in pain, and even like taking a walk like didn't make me feel better, even though I knew it was better for my mental health and better for my body. Like I was in pain after, and I just always felt swollen and uncomfortable and just like inflamed, like in my skin, in my joints, in my body, my muscles, etc. So I was feeling pretty lousy by the time that my husband and I joined the cleanse.
Yeah. So you did this with your husband. You're a busy working mother. You have children. You have really limited time. What were some of the resistances that you had to actually saying yes? I'm going to do this. Like, can you
Mhm.
pinpoint some of those things? Because a lot of the times, folks are like, "Oh, I don't have time for that. I can't do that. I cook all these different meals. There's no way." So, what did you find were some of the resistances, and then also and another question to that too, some of the resistances you had from joining, and then what surprised you after you started to get into the role of the 30-day?
Mhm. Yeah, so it's everything you described. Like I was thinking, with my schedule, at times I make three different meals for
Mhm.
dinner,
Yeah.
based upon diet preferences and kids, and and ease and convenience, frankly.
Mhm.
And so I was really worried about how this would fit in, how regimented. Like I am not, historically me following a routine and having anything that feels restrictive is a challenge for me. And so I usually fall off, or I last for a little while, and it ebbs and it flows and blah, blah, blah. And so I thought, gosh, time. Um, you think money, like anybody that I think like grew up like financially challenged at any point, like even if like you make money, or even if you like do the math of eating well
Yeah.
versus like the health, you either pay for it now or you're going to pay for it one way or another. Like um that came into my head briefly, but then actually my husband and I like sort of did the math, and we're like, no, like we've been not feeling great for a long time, and this totally makes sense to invest in this. And so those are like the hesitations, like time, money, the restriction, like how, could I really, for me, coffee,
Yeah.
alcohol, like breads, like, oh my God, like, am I really going to be able to do that? And the coffee was a big one because he's tea, I'm coffee, but it's a lot of it. And like, we were really like, that was like, there's no way in hell we're going to be able to give that up.
You
And
did
we did.
it.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Great. And then some of the surprises once you did start the 30-day with like food choices and fun creativity with meals, like what did you find that was you were like, oh, this is actually pretty awesome and I'm feeling great. So how did that go? What was it like?
So I think for both of us, and it's like I like to pride myself that I think I'm pretty aware about food choices anyway. And like, so the poor choices that I've made, it's not like that I'm like, oh, that surprises me that white bread is this or whatever. Like it's not that. It's just you get into the rhythm of life, and you're just trying to sometimes cope and get by, and you do whatever you do. But the surprises for me was when we started shopping, and taking it more of like chunking it up. Like, yeah, we went to the grocery store more often during the cleanse, because we like would say, oh, we're going to have this for dinner, and we're going to get these two meals.
Yeah.
And some things you can buy, like you have all your product, and some things you can buy in bulk order or, you know, more further out, but it's a lot of fresh ingredients. And so we would go every couple of days. And so our habits around buying organic or seeing things that we had never, I remember you telling me about like Trader Joe's like red lentil pasta. And I was like, what? Like,
Yeah.
and then once you start doing that shopping, you see the choices. So all of a sudden, yeah, you might spend more time at Healthy Living and Trader Joe's than you might at a like Shaw's or whatever. But even Shaw's, like we found, you know, we found the crackers
Yeah.
and we found the things that we liked in those places. And then you're like more attuned to what's available and like how many choices there really are.
Consciousness
Yeah,
around
there's so much more
really
conscious around
thinking
organic
about.
and what's gluten free and where, you know, like, and reading your labels and looking at the array of stuff. Like there was stuff that I just never stopped and looked at on a
Yeah.
shelf that all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, like it's not just I get one choice of organic gluten-free pasta, but there's like 5 choices and I can like determine I still have flavor. Like I can still
Yeah.
figure out, oh, I can use herbs and I can dried and fresh and whatever. And because I like taste, you know, I don't like eating the same thing every day. And we didn't do that. Like we were able to have really creative meals. It worked great. My husband's a vegetarian, so it actually worked fabulous for him because
Great.
a lot of the meals were vegetarian or had like the supplements in
Plant-based.
with
Mhm.
lentils, whatever that
Yeah.
that he would be eating anyway. Like he's a big curry fan. So we did a lot of like Indian
Yeah.
food because
Yeah.
he grew up in England on, you know, Monday night curry. And
Yeah.
so we were able to just like make it fresh. But what he used to do is all the boxed, like you can eat terribly as a vegetarian too. Like
Yes.
there's so much processed crap. And like all of a sudden we
Yeah.
were making things from fresh. And then we both started cooking more. And so that
Cool.
thing about time is like you make the time. So we made
Mhm.
the time. Yeah. And it was delicious. Like we, you know, we found some favorite recipes that regardless if you're on a cleanse or not, like it was good. Like we'd have it anytime.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And then moving forward, so post 30 days, lots of times people say, what am I going to do after this? What did you find that was really helpful with moving off of the 30 days and like continuing on this like healthy pattern that gave you energy, knowing that food is energy, food is fueling you, and like the choices you're making that you were just talking about, and how that's it can be fun and yummy, but also give you energy rather than take you down and give you that like sluggish head fogginess that a lot of people are experiencing.
Hmm. Yeah, well, I think it's just that. I think something I didn't mention before, or I started mentioning about arthritis. I think my biggest takeaway or my aha moment was like 7 days in. So you definitely like you're definitely withdrawal. It was actually harder for my husband. I had like 2 or 3 days, you know, that entry place, and we went cold turkey. Like we didn't like even ease off. We like maybe a little bit eased off,
Yeah.
but it was like, oh, you know, and I
And
operate
sometimes
a
it's
little
not
bit
even just the caffeine withdrawal, it's the sugar detox
sugar
too.
with, oh, it was
Sugar
definitely,
is
yeah.
in so many of our foods, and during this program, we eliminate all processed sugars. There are sweeteners that you can have, like honey and maple syrup and things like that. But it's like that pulling that plug from the caffeine and the processed sugar is like, ugh. And just that alone is helping us like accelerate into this healing space. And then we're flooding our system with superfoods and whole foods. And yeah, so some of your
I
biggest
feel it.
takeaways
So
with
I was
that.
way more drinking water, like even like drinking more, like, you know, drinking more water. Like I just found that I was like flushing my system with good stuff. My
Mm,
skin, so for me, the
yeah.
inflammation and my skin,
Mhm.
like those two things were like, I think more of the unexpected. Yes, I lost weight. I lost during the cleanse, I lost 14 pounds. Like, so in a month's time, that's a lot. That's like a lot of weight. And for me, that's been on high blood pressure, that can be the difference, medicine, that can be the difference of being on high blood pressure medicine or not. Like that can have a really big deal when you lose 12, 15 pounds can be substantial in like how you
And your health, and there's
and your
nothing
health,
wrong with that.
overall health.
Yeah.
But I also lost like the inflammation in my joints, you know, like the arthritis piece. Like 7 days in, I started like feeling lighter and I was like I was finding that I was going for longer walks and I'd come home and I'd still have energy and I didn't hurt and I didn't like it was huge. So if I took anything away, like the weight loss is great because I want to feel better.
Mhm.
And I was overweight and I'm, you know, I'm still working on that. And since the cleanse, I think I'm down 24 pounds now. Like,
That's
so
amazing.
post cleanse, you know, I
And how's
continue.
your blood pressure meds? Are you like having to take those anymore or
I'm,
weaning?
I'm on a basic level for maintenance, but I'm like seeing my doctor and, you know,
Hey.
we're monitoring that, but she was thrilled. She said, gosh, I lost like
Woo!
like 15% of my body weight or so. And like it was some big, I mean, my doctor was like, this is really impressive. And I told her what I did. I told her, I said, well, actually, I went on this, what you would consider an elimination diet, which frankly, my husband's doctor had been telling him to do for years because of
Yeah,
all of his IBS issues and like,
yep, totally.
just like they've been trying to get him to do that for years, and he'd go and buy like a bottle of lactate and call it good. And I was like, well, you can't really eat all the other stuff when you're, like, that's not it. You got to like do it
Like,
all. And
pull out
then,
these things and flood your
and we've
system with all this yummy stuff, and then
yeah,
boom,
we've
you get the
added things
energy
that
back.
yeah, and we've added things back in, but like
Yeah,
to your
of
point,
course.
like what have we learned that we've kept in is like some of this is like it was surprising that he likes oat milk. Like he's
Oh,
okay.
I love oat
He's
milk.
okay like using oat milk instead of cream and dairy, which upsets his stomach. Like
Those
it
little
makes that
switches. Yeah.
little tiny things. And I found that like this is a great example. Like I went to Costco the other day. We've been out of the cleanse for probably a month and a half or more, right? It was October. So we some of the consistent things that we're
The
doing.
healthy habits that have
Yeah,
continued on.
Paul's still drinking a shake a day. Like he likes, he's
I love
I
the
was
shake.
I had a little bit harder time. He definitely was better about the 3 shakes and like really doing that. So he still has one a day. But
Great.
for me, I went to Costco and I was like, all of a sudden I'm like buying ancient grains and we love the pumpkin seed, like the sprouted pumpkin seeds, and we
Um,
put that on. So I
on
like looked in
sandwiches.
my cart and I was like, this is so different. And it doesn't mean
Different.
I'm still not buying some of the things that I need to for the kids for
Of
snacks and
course.
whatever, and eating pizza, like
Pizza.
I found that was really interesting that I bought like avocado mayonnaise because I started cooking a ton with avocado oil
Yep.
and coconut oil, and I like it. Like, and I was like, I can switch this out from like butter or other things. So
Yeah.
it's those little things that like make a difference. And if you just stay aware and conscious, and then really do this reset every so often, because we sort of like ease back in, or if you
Yeah.
have a stressful week, or I might drink a little bit more alcohol, like I wasn't drinking. I haven't really, honestly, like I don't drink a lot of alcohol anymore. And I was drinking from a coping strategy, like not a lot, but like pretty often, just a
Yep.
drink here and a drink there. And all of a sudden I'm like, no, for
Not
me,
craving.
I'm realizing I don't process it well. It's inflammatory for me. Like I have to really watch it and think more, mindfully about when and if. And I know
Mhm.
you and I have talked about that. It's really just making those like more mindful decisions. It's not that you're like saying, I can never have any of this ever
Exactly.
again. It's just like I'm gonna be more intentional about what I have. And if I feel like I'm like, going off the rails,
Yeah.
like it's like,
You
oh,
know what's going to bring you back.
yeah, I know what to bring me back. So
Because
all of
you've
that's
felt it. You haven't just gone, oh, I guess that for a day. You've felt it. You've been through it for the 30 days that when you do start to veer, you're like, okay, that's cool. Don't beat yourself up. We're supposed to enjoy our lives and have pizza. Are you kidding me? I have pizza often. But it's like, when it's like, all right, I'm not feeling so great right now. And like, let's just corral back. And what does that look like and mean? And it doesn't feel so boxy. It's like a fun choice that actually is going to make you feel better.
right, right, right. So yeah, it's just really, it's been good for, it was a great jump start at the right time during a time that I was really not feeling well. And it was enough that like I'm back to doing the things I like to do. I'm doing my cold water dipping. I'm back at Queens, I'm back at my studio, and getting back into my hot yoga, and I
Good.
take walks with my kid and my dog, and I look forward to it. Like I try, and I know I build it into my schedule. And so it's all those little things that, you know, make up a lot of big things, because I have parents with, chronic health issues, and I watch, the struggles or the medications and the
Yeah.
pain, just frankly, the pain that they're in their 60s and 70s now.
Um,
And I think, gosh, sometimes I think, gosh, I think my mom was in, better shape than me at this age, or was definitely like, you have to think about it like this is the long game. There's a
mhm.
long game view too. And again, it's not always going to be perfect, but it was the right reset to really get me on a track where I'm making better choices for myself, and I feel it, and I know when I you know when I and I know, like, I'm just in tune with my body a lot more.
It's
um,
amazing.
and how it feels. So that's been really good. And I think Paul too, like Paul's been noticing lately, like he's really like, oh, or he'll have the issues, with his stomach, and just it's, and it's discomfort and it's not fun. And he's like, gosh, and he might like pull back on the tea and the
Yeah.
sugar, and now he and I use honey and maple syrup a lot more as our
Mhm.
additives, instead of, he used to like pour the sugar into the tea, and it's like now he'll put like a little maple syrup or nothing at all. Like he's really
Yeah.
like pulled back on that, because he knows that like he doesn't feel good. And so
Yeah.
yeah, I think we both have, found that to be so helpful.
Tell me one more thing before we get going, about
Yeah.
your skin. You mentioned your skin a bunch, and I can tell right now, like, wow, you're like super glowing. But what did you notice, and when did you notice you're like a difference in their skin? Because I felt the same.
Yeah. Well, and I noticed your skin, like, or like and you've always had great skin, but like it glows, you know what I mean? Like it's dewy and it's glowy and it's like, it's got moisture, and I have really dry skin, especially the winter. Like I'm noticing now, like some of the dry, and I think, gosh, like hydrate. What are you putting in? What are you putting in? What's the fuel that you're putting in? And so my skin, I probably saw a difference within like the first, 7 to 10 days, like a real mark difference in my
Yeah.
skin tone. Um, like blotchiness, but again, that swelling. Like I used to wake up and be like, I could just like puff my face. And it doesn't mean like I'm 44 years old. I get puffy days. Like I wake
Yeah,
up and like,
of
or if I
course.
cry, I'm gonna be puffy. But the swelling and my skin tone is just it's like a game changer. And now I know, like when I don't hydrate, and
Yeah.
like, and that's one area that I've had a harder time after coming off, like it's just hydrating with water, like getting enough water, especially if you go back to some coffee or
Yep.
other things that take away from that. I've noticed, like I'll notice the dullness almost immediately, like it's
Yeah.
so fascinating. So, and for me, like I've always, like my skin has always been something that I've always felt like is dry, is troublesome, is blotchy. I don't have, I don't know. I don't like, I've never had like wonderful skin. And yet like I feel like I've had a lot of comments on my skin over
Yeah.
the last couple of months. Like people will be
Wow.
like, "You're glowing. Oh my God, what are you doing? Is it a new regimen?" And I was like, no, I'm just like eating better and
I'm drinking water.
drinking water. And that's been good. And like it's so counterintuitive when you like fill your body with water. You like think like, oh, I'm gonna feel like,
So
whatever.
good for us.
But it's so good. It's and I think I bought in, we buy into all these like
Product.
hidden rules, not just yeah, you don't need a lot of products when you like, no, it's just we've grown up with these like rules. It's like my thing around the money, like, or what it, like we grow up with these like unwritten rules that we learned just through our environments and
Yeah.
how we grew
This
up
in
and
our systems.
yeah, and our, our just our lifestyles and stuff. And it's really, it's been interesting to like unpack some of that stuff too. And I think, that's our work to do as
Yeah.
people. And so
That's what a lot of people say when they go through this. A lot of people usually say, I feel so much more in touch with like my body and my mind, what it's telling me, what feels good with what I'm putting into my body, what's giving me energy, what's making me feel glowy and move well when I'm doing these activities that I love. But also another thing is like the environment. Like people feel more connected to nature, more connected to the planet, more connected to how they're recycling,
yes,
what
our
they're
food.
shopping for, and what it's coming
Gosh,
in.
your
You know?
systems, your food
Yeah.
system. It's made me more of like a climate activist. Like, honest to
Ew.
God, like it's like I am like surprised. There were other things coming into my life that because of being a parent and the world that we're leaving my children,
Yeah.
but learning the food systems and the things that we can do just by, holistic farming and
Yes.
knowing where your food supply is and having this reciprocal environment with animals and plants and that sort of thing, and how like that's like everybody could take control of that and do
Yeah.
things for the environment, that like there's other things that are so outside of our control, but that's like something we all have the ability to influence, like every single one of us. And so it's made me more of a climate activist. Like it's
That's
really
what's
wild to
amazing.
think about.
That's what's amazing about Purium too, and why I stand firmly behind it. And also, I use the products every day and have for over a year now. And it's like they're using regenerative farming practices. Their carbon footprint is way, way lighter than other products out there. And I just like trust that. And you're getting really pure ingredients fast into your system with good soil behind it. And if you do a lot of work and research around soil content, it's all about the soil, and they're all about regenerative farming practices. And it's just cool to be knowing that you are spending your money on pure products that are not filled with chemicals. They're completely organic, non-GMO, and they're not being sprayed. It's like all pure, and it's just
and food supply, like the way we shop, it's a game changer. Like you just make way better informed choices, and you question things. You get a little bit more like discerning and critical of where your food supply is coming from. Or, you know, what you can grow yourself, or go to your local farm. Like it's good for our local economy. You know, it's just, it's really made me an informed consumer. And I think we all, you know, can use that in our lives too. So it's just, those are like the surprises that you don't think about necessarily when you're like, oh, I'm going to do this like cleanse and
feel better. And you're like,
there's a lot of like extra benefits or things that you learn about yourself or that you think about. And there's one other thing that I didn't talk about. That again, as like I'm 44 years old, had a baby at nearly 40, and then, you know, and then have been feeling like I'm premenopausal. So the thing about not feeling good before, I also like had lost touch with like my cycles, ovulation, like am I menopause? Like I wasn't, I wasn't having.
There was a lot of question marks.
There was a lot of question marks for me, and I like was not feeling well, and again, like a few weeks into this, like like the hormonal balancing that came back, like it's like clockwork again in my, you know, like I thought like, oh, I'm definitely on this path to, and we all are, you know, women are path, but I'm like super regular now. I like, you know, I like feel when I'm like, you know, the ovulation, the thing that like I used to be able to trust at certain points in my life, like I wasn't trusting. And it's interesting how, again, food is medicine. You can go and get
clarity that what we put into our bodies brings clarity to like our clocks and like like we are nature, like our nature components of like time and regulation. And when you feel out of sync of that, it feels out of control. And we're at the doctor, we're asking all these questions, and it's like, that's exactly where you were at. You were totally there. And I was like, Susie, try this thing. And like, I'm so glad you did, because wow, this has been quite an interview, because you have had like huge shifts, and like even your blood pressure medication aside, like alone, and touching base with your doctor and her then prescribing you to like wean. It's like, that's massive, because one of the biggest killers is high blood pressure. And like with causes to stroke and heart problems and so many different things. And it's like, you know, you got ahead of that. Like that's empowering to know, like I got steps ahead of that.
Yeah. And it's genetics. Like my, you know, my parents are both, and it's genetics, but like, if you have any ability to influence your genetics, do it. Like do it. Cause I don't like being on meds. Like I want to, you know, I want to do whatever I can to find the resources that are natural and available to me to be healthy. And so that's huge. Like you can combat your genetics. Like it's not a done deal. Like you can absolutely influence whether you're on blood medication in your 40s or your 60s or 70s, when like okay, it's a little harder, you know. So it's been good.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.